just breaking right now is that DC United has hired Lucy Rushton as their general manager. I feel as though I feel like we just we're learning this together.
You broke the news, man. I did not know that. That's congratulations.
So how do you feel? What does this mean?
I wish you told me this before I answered the question a few minutes ago.
I wish I knew. I just found out from my producer.
It's great. Obviously, great news.
Hey guys, welcome on into Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. And as you know, we've been shooting this show from home for over a year. We've actually been shooting this show from my home for longer than we ever shot it in person, which is like pretty crazy to say. Don't worry, I'm going to invoice for my apartment space. But one of our last guests that we had in person that I actually saw face to face was none other than MLS Commissioner Don Garber. And he was just coming from a coronavirus task force meeting to our interview. And at the time, we really had no idea what we were about to experience. Well, flash forward a year, it's April 2021, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome the commissioner back onto our show here today. We are so thrilled to have MLS Commissioner Don Garber. Commish, how much wine have you been drinking this past year?
A lot. As a matter of fact, no joke, Julie. So I was trying to keep track of all the wine we drank. My family was quarantined together by my wife, my kids, my granddaughter, though the granddaughter hasn't started drinking wine yet. And man, we were plowing through wine. As you know, I'm a wine collector. I have my Austin FC wine bottle here.
Ooh, wow.
Maybe when we're live a year from now, you and I could have some of that. But yeah, it's been an amazing year. And you are right. We were here in this conference room that I'm in here right now in a task force meeting. And it was literally a few days later that the league shut down. And half of the people on that task force got COVID from that meeting that we all attended together. So fortunately, I didn't get it to you or anybody else who's doing your show last year.
It's really quite crazy when you think about it, because that was March 3rd, and that was sort of like when everyone in the U.S. was starting to figure out that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be going into work, or what does this mean, right? We were learning and taking cues from the rest of the world. And before we get into everything about that and beyond, we do have a drink on the show. What are we drinking here today?
Well, it's still the afternoon. I got a long day ahead of me, Julie. So I'm doing the Dasani right now.
Okay, Dasani. I've got
the big MLS sponsor, by the way.
Yes, MLS. I thought there was no other way we would have Dasani unless it was a sponsor. And I've got my MLS Cup mug, courtesy of Molly Dreska, one of your employees, and got some water in here as well. So I would like to toast. I'll do a toast to you, Mr. Commissioner, for being able to pull off not only MLS's back tournament, but also your league, being able to award your trophy, being able to stay safe, and then now embarking on a 26th season. So toasting to you. And if there's anything else you'd like to, I don't know why I usually ask the guests what they want to toast to, but I am toasting to you. But is there anything you would like to throw in there?
No, I think that's perfect. It's been a long year, and we were the only league to go from bubble to go back to our stadiums and to play our final in the home site, of one of our teams. We had some fans in Columbus, back in December of last year. But boy, it's been let's hope we're past it. I still think we got a ways to go. But thanks for all your support. I've known you a long time, so I appreciate being on Drinks with Binks.
Drinks with Binks. All right, cheers. Cheers, Commissioner, and we'll take a little sip. Well, I will at least. Got to get that H2O when you're working so hard. At least you are working very hard. Okay, so let's go back. It was last year, we were talking, we're looking ahead to the year. We mentioned that you're able to pull off all of these different events. What would you tell yourself, having experienced everything you've done, back in March 2020, knowing just what was going to happen? I know hindsight's 2020, but what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Well, it was so exhausting, honestly. And I think if there was any thought that I had, if I had to do this again, is to try to do everything I could to just balance it a little bit better. I think everybody from my staff, which was together every day, on Zoom calls all day, all night, we worked 7 days a week for the better part of a year. And here we are a year later, and it's taken its toll. Everybody is pretty wiped out, and now we have a brand new season, which we'll talk about, and everybody's got to get up and going and sort of put COVID-19 from 2020 in the rearview mirror. We were not prepared. I don't think anybody could have been prepared for a global pandemic. I think we will be prepared for these kinds of work stoppage factors probably better in the future, understanding how we should be thoughtful about health and safety protocols and being able to communicate with technology perhaps differently. I'm in an empty office in MLS. We're not back here in the offices yet. We've got to totally rethink the way people work, and where does remote work and Zoom calls and these kind of interviews fit into a world where I used to travel 100 days a year and go to every press event and every game I could. So, it is thinking about a new normal, and it's such a tired expression. We're beginning that new normal now, and it's never going to be the same for sure. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it's never going to be the same.
Right. Definitely. We're seeing how we can live in our world without some of the things we had before. Just one more question looking back. What's one thing that you're proud of that has happened this past year, and one thing you think you could have done a better job with?
Yeah, without doubt, it was the commitment and the absolute, laser focused by players, by owners, by staff, by everybody in our ecosystem, everybody that touches Major League Soccer, to ensure that we got back to work as quickly as we could in the safest way possible. And think of the work of MLS is Back, which I'm incredibly proud of. We were the first men's league at that scale, way before the NBA was, to get into an environment where we're playing games on youth soccer fields and creating virtual stadiums and moving 1,200 people into an environment away from their home, isolated, and doing it where they basically were safe. Getting those games on TV, and then remarkably before MLS is Back even ended, getting back into our markets. So you think about the work that goes into the mindset of a bubble tournament to now traveling during a global pandemic. So I'm very proud of that, and hats off to our staff, which literally, worked their fingers to the bone on that. What would I do differently? I'm one of those guys, Julie, I think about everything. So I spend a little bit of time looking back, but most of my time looking forward. What could we have done better? I think we probably could have communicated a little bit better, internally and externally. I think we're also stressed and almost overwhelmed by the fears of the pandemic, that perhaps we were running really fast just to be sure we got things done. When I do look back, I'll say, MLS Back tournament couldn't have been any better. We got back to play. That couldn't have been any better. Playing a hosted final couldn't have been any better. Maybe a little more time with focusing in on our own mental well-being, because I think that's an important thing. That pandemic is taking its toll on everybody's mental health. But overall, I feel pretty good, Julie. I really do.
Right. I think you really hit the nail on the head there, with everyone trying to figure out how to create what their normal was in this new way. And we're all like us, like we tried to get on air very quickly right after we had to go home, right? Like you're trying not to miss a beat. And especially as a league, like you guys didn't. And I know a lot of other leagues were wanting to be in your position to come back first sometimes. Maybe coming back first or putting it's a lot of stress, as you mentioned. You're not the president of the CDC or Dr. Fauci or anything like that. Yet you're thrown into a situation that almost demands you to have to make some of these decisions. When you look at other leagues and how they return to play, what's something that maybe has stuck out that you've thought, I really wish we'd either done that or I want to do that?
Yeah. So it's a good question. It's a good subject, Julie. Think about the fact that people like Joanne Neal, who's the president and chief administrative officer of the league, and Anastasia Deniers, our counsel, Mark Abbott, who our president, these are people that had to create health and safety protocols, and none of them are doctors. We had to hire the right people. We had to take real courage in making tough decisions. We had to make game day decisions on whether games were going to be played, whether in Orlando we got back in our markets, whether we were putting players on planes, whether we were isolating. All these things are just mind-boggling that was done. It shows the capacity of the human mind and spirit. You know, you're faced with an enormous challenge, and you either could face it head on and try to overcome it, or you could panic and run for the hills. And everybody stayed very focused on getting it right, and enormously proud of that. You know, I will tell you, Julie, most people don't talk enough about it. Just saw this great article that Kathy Engelbart, the commissioner of the WNBA, wrote an editorial about the importance of focusing in on women's sports. Women's sports needs more attention. You know, I think the NWSL had brand new commissioner, Lisa Baird. I mean, she was in the job for like a week, and then she gets thrown into the pandemic. And they went into their bubble in Salt Lake at our stadium there, not one positive. And what was so remarkable there is I think the athletes really, really were focused on mask wearing, on sanitizing, on staying isolated, on not violating any of the protocols and rules. And I don't think Lisa got enough credit for that. I mean, people have talked about that, but not a positive in that entire time, the month or so that they were in the bubble. You know, the NBA did a great job, and they took care of the health and safety of their players and their mental health. They had them fishing, and they had them do a whole bunch of other stuff down near us in Disney, and they've got a lot of resources. They were able to have a lot more fun than perhaps our players did. Again, our players are playing multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Right. We had sometimes playing 3 games a day. But overall, I think the whole industry did a very, very, very good job.
We have so much more we want to get to with MLS Commissioner Don Garber, including perhaps maybe where we will be watching MLS in the future. Make sure you stay tuned for all that and more on Drinks with Binks. Welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, and I'm joined by MLS Commissioner Don Garber. Now, Commish, last year when you were on our show, we had a handshake agreement that if we had, I think, like $1 billion at Fubo, you would give us MLS rights. So I know that we have that deal. But as you are looking toward negotiating a new MLS deal, which I remember when your last MLS deal started, I started at FS1 in 2013. A lot has changed since that moment, including how we watch sports. As you approach these negotiations, what are the biggest things that you're keeping in mind to make sure that you get the most bang for your buck?
Well, you know, it's really 3 things. You know, we want to be sure we have the right distribution in providing our games, our matches to the broadest possible audience as we can. And I think that's what all leagues are focused on, even if they're focused on trying to get the largest rights fees. It is about connecting with fans, doing that with new technology. Sports betting is such an important part of future sports relationships. Data and second screen is a big part of that. But ultimately, we've got a very, very unique package, really. I wasn't able to talk about it last year. We'll be the only property that can go to market with every single game that we have across all regions, and whether it's a local game or whether it's a national game or whether it's an out-of-market game, whether it's internationally distributed or not, we'll go to the market with almost 600 games in our package. And that's unique. It's certainly unique for Major League Soccer. So we're excited to go to the market. We've got great partnerships with Fox and ESPN and Univision. We'll talk to them obviously first. And then we're very excited by all the activity that's going on there. Again, and you know this well, there's more soccer on television than any other sport in North America. You have so many so many new companies that are launching streaming services, that are buying Champions League and buying all sorts of other international leagues. So it's a good time for us with our very young, diverse, and digitally native audience to be able to go to the market for our new media rights deals. Let's
get to a very exciting club that is beginning this year, Austin FC. We saw that you have the wine there. By the way, what kind of wine is that?
This is a Ravenswood. This is actually a pretty good Cabernet. You know, I don't know why or how they decided to do their branded bottle with Ravenswood, but Ravenswood's a good cab. Yeah, good Napa cab.
Yeah. And I love Austin. I think it's such a cool city. What makes the club unique from the other clubs that you have already?
Well, you know, every team has its own personality. Julie, and this team will be no different. I think you got to layer on the uniqueness of the city. I mean, it is, keep it weird, Austin, and it's got such a great food culture, a great music culture, the great backyard hangout culture. South by Southwest could never happen, in my view, and be as effective as it is in another city. It's just perfect for Austin. It's in a great location. The stadium's fantastic. It's got a great brand. And they have Matthew McConaughey as their culture minister.
All right.
Matthew is just, all right is right. Just a super great, focused bunch of people that are trying to effectively deliver the first professional sports team in Austin, Texas. So perfect alignment for us. League on the rise with one of the great American cities on the rise.
I absolutely love that. Now, speaking about the league on the rise, you do have to deal with many different issues that have come up. And one of them in particular is addressing diversity. And I know that you've talked about Shola Amiobi being a part of your diversity force going forward. But when we look at MLS and we compare it to other leagues, we've spoken on this show a ton about the lack of Black coaches in the NFL and executives and really trying to enhance diversity in decision-making positions. When you look at MLS, there are also gaps that mirror NFL and other leagues in terms of representation of minorities in these positions of power and also women. What are the tangible steps that you guys can do to make sure that there is actually representation of minorities and women in these positions?
Julie, it starts with, you have to be focused on change, right? So we recognize that, we don't have enough representation for these underserved groups. And whether that's, women on the field in coaching positions or women in the front offices, though we're making progress there, or it's people of color in a wide variety of different key roles. You've got to recognize that, that needs to change. And, we've hired the right people to do that. Shola is a great start. We have a committee of owners, along with members of the Black Players for Change and representatives of the retired players group, representatives of our academy coaches. And they'll come together and say, what are the key steps that we need to make to start create opportunities? And you can't wave a magic wand. It's not as if you could just say, okay, by next Tuesday, this is what's going to happen. You need to have a plan. You need to have development programs. You need to have those jobs more accessible to those people who are looking for those jobs. So communication is a big part of it. And then you need to work at the grassroots to start ensuring that our sport can become more diversified, that we have more people of color, that we have more people of women in training positions to chart getting the experience that they need to get so that when those jobs are open, they're getting hired. And that's the process that started, mid last year. I'm excited about it, and I think we will make progress for sure.
And just one quick follow-up, but when do you think we would maybe see a female general manager or head coach?
Well, I don't, there are some assistant general manager women, and in particular those who, a handful of them that used to work in the league office. But I don't know the answer to that, Julie. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have one today, right? I mean, I look at how effective Jill Ellis is. I think her name was in the mix for the DC United coach, and the fact that she's, the most successful women's coach ever doesn't mean any reason that she couldn't be one of the most, if not the most successful men's coach ever. So it's just a matter of having more and more experienced people in those jobs and more and more people that are willing to sort of take the leap and say that this is something that we think isn't about just hiring a woman, but it's hiring the best possible person to coach my team.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all of your openness and honesty on this particular issue. And we have a whole lot more we want to get to with MLS Commissioner Don Garber here on Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. I'm joined by MLS Commissioner Don Garber and Commissioner. We were just discussing about females as a general manager or as a head coach, and you said a female could be a general manager today. And just breaking right now is that DC United has hired Lucy Rushton as their general manager. I feel as though I feel like we just we're learning this together.
You broke the news, man. I did not know that. That's congratulations.
So how do you feel?
I see.
What does this mean?
I wish you told me this before I answered the question a few minutes ago. You tricked me.
I wish I knew. I just found out from my producer.
It's great. Obviously, great news.
What do you think, in the greater scheme of things, this means for MLS on a global scale?
Well, again, I know there's a very heralded female general manager in baseball, and just look at the news and look at the engagement and look at the story about baseball. And for us, this is fantastic. My answer to the previous question is, I feel the same way today. There's no reason why there couldn't be a female head coach. There's no reason why there couldn't be a female commissioner. We have a female president in our league, a female general counsel. I think we have to get to the world where it almost doesn't matter, because everybody who's in these roles are the most qualified people and the ones that are going to take it to the next level. I actually am pretty optimistic that we're going to get to that point sooner than most people think. And that's one of the positive things that's come out of 2020, Julie. All this social justice and awareness and racial awakening, I think, is going to cause us, at a time when we were thoughtful about where the world was in the first place, to perhaps be more aggressive in diverse hiring.
Right, to push us to new levels and to new boundaries. And I think that MLS has done a very good job with that. I'm not even saying that as someone that enjoys the league and supports the league, but I think that you guys, out of so many other leagues, have done a very good job in terms of raising awareness for diversity. And you know what, Don, Commissioner, is
you can
that
call me Don.
is that you have a way of having the foresight, right? You said we could have a female general manager today, and last year you taught us all about coronavirus. So I think that at least this year, right now, we're heading in the right direction with having females in power. So
yeah, well,
I think you might know what you're talking about.
There are a handful of reporters and media people that every year we do an interview. So let's keep this one going, Julie. Maybe a year from now, we could talk about some more successes, whatever those might be.
Yes, that will keep me on air for one more year at the very least. We will have more when we return. Sorry, Don, we have to say goodbye when we come back, but we will be very quick with this break. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on all social media at Fubo Sports. Well, guys, we've had an awesome time drinking and binking with MLS Commissioner Don Garber, who has been enlightening us with everything that is going on for the 26th season. And Commissioner, can you tell us what you're most looking forward to this year? Well,
looking forward to the launch of our newest team in Austin. That game will be on Saturday in LA, and that game will be on Fox. Can't wait to watch that. I'll be flying overnight to Miami for an ABC game and seeing their first game in front of a relatively large fan group in their new stadium. And, 3 new stadiums coming on, Julie. So, 1 new team, 3 new stadiums. It's really going to be incredibly exciting. Very exciting time and outlook right now. A little bit different from last year, which was ominous. But now, as we are seeing most of this country being vaccinated and getting ahead of the virus that has plagued us for so much of this year, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And of course, that includes the season of MLS is back. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us here today. You can watch all of those MLS games on fuboTV, and you also know where to find us on social at Fubo Sports. And until next time, bottoms up.